sit. What's happening?
Hey.
Good morning, Pastor Katie Martinez.
Yeah, good morning, Ryan.
Nice to see you.
Good to see you too.
We've been having a great week around here.
It was quite a week, wasn't it?
I know. I'm looking to see if we have any of our volunteers
not
sitting
busy.
here.
Well, yeah, they're probably all serving kids.
They're all sleeping at home. I was thinking they're sleeping still. They're like, nobody's with the kids today. They're all like...
Or that was their church, and they
exhausted.
feel perfectly free to stay home.
Five 4-hour days at church feels like they checked the box this week, right?
That's all the religion they can
We've
take.
got a little bit of artwork from the kiddos
That's
here.
fantastic.
And then I love the drawings on the window, or the windows, out here.
Yeah, that's what my kids always wanted to do at my house, on the sliding glass doors. And I said once, yes once, and then...
It was all over from there.
From then on, I said, go to the church to do that.
Go to the church, do that nonsense. We'll mess it up in there. Yeah, so lots of good stuff. We got school supply drive happening. You're going to talk about that today. What else did you do last week besides hanging around here for kids camp? Anything fun?
Fun. I went to the art in the park.
I missed that.
Yeah, it was nice to have it back. You know, last year
I can't believe I missed that. I
the
saw
year
a
that
post.
never happened.
I saw a post, and it was kids camp week, so I got done with kids camp in the morning, and then it was just like, what planet am I on? And I missed it all completely.
You worked harder at kids camp than I did.
I don't know about that. I had
think
fun.
you did.
So it was good time. But I had a funny experience. We thought course action. We wanted to do like a theater room in our house because I like to watch TV.
Oh yeah,
that's like
me too.
That's just how I like to decompress. So we thought, let's try and do a theater. So we've been watching online for like used stuff. So we got the whole set. Like some extremely wealthy person was moving out of their house, and those are the best people to buy stuff from because they don't really need the money, so they just want to get rid of it.
Yeah.
Right. So we got a screen and a little projector and a used sound bar, really cheap online. So I go pick it up yesterday. That was my project yesterday. Huge screen. I said, how do you take it apart? And they said, well, you can, but it takes a lot of time. So I didn't. So I ended up borrowing the trailer that we have here.
Yeah.
I came over, got it, went back over, put it in there, got it home. Judah and I are trying to get it down our basement steps. Will not go down the basement steps.
Right.
So I had to take it apart. Here's the irony of it. It took 10 minutes to take apart and 30 minutes to put back together. It took me an hour and a half to get the trailer. I listened to these people. I should have just gone with my gut, taking it apart.
So it's not just like a gigantic television set. It's actually...
It's a projector.
What we have here.
Kind of like this, only not nearly as
So people still
fancy.
have those in their...
Yeah.
Because that's more... being at the theater.
So we're trying to set that up. I got a few things left to do today, so we're going to have fun with that. But it was just 2.5, 3 hours of getting truck and trailer and this if I would have taken 10 seconds to just... So that was my Saturday.
Well, I'm glad that you got it. I bought art at the park, too.
Did you?
I bought 2 things, yeah.
So it's more than just the sculptures. They have like little booths and things?
Yeah. On the south side, on the north side of 29th is that Benson Sculpture Park. And that's an international sculpture show.
Yeah.
And then on the south side in the North Lake Park, that's just west of Loveland High there.
Yes.
Yep. Right there by the fire station, there they have, crafts people, arts and crafts. I mean, everything, cool. From like fine art to, cool stuff.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's a cool community. Wendy would love it, so we won't go. No, you won't. No, that's awesome.
It's on today, I think.
Is it on again today?
Yeah.
Oh, maybe I'll try and swing by. So it's not, I haven't missed it yet completely. I can go.
Yeah, I bought these iron, metalwork sculptures from a guy in Phoenix. So it's kind of fun.
So people come from all over for this with their
They come from all
trade
over.
and craft.
Yep.
I saw online the Hicks family, the Hicks family, they do woodworking here. We dedicated baby, and they were in like a big show. Like they had all kinds of cool stuff. We should do that here. Like we should have like booths set up one day, kind of like we do food trucks. Just set up your stuff. Jim, you could bring your Denver Broncos paraphernalia that Gwen wants you to get rid of.
It's the old church bazaar.
It's the old church bazaar.
I'll make noodles.
Except we'll call it an art show.
I'll make noodles. Yeah.
Call it an art show, and then people come out for it. Awesome. Well, we went over our time, a lot of time.
I didn't know when it ends.
It's all right.
Okay.
We'll be back. It's going to be a good experience today.
Jessica. I lead the programming and production teams here, and today we have some great music, a great message by Ryan, some big energy before we're all sent on into our week. So it's so good to be together, and every person at Crossroads is welcome, wholly and fully. So if you came in feeling like maybe you don't fit in or a little bit nervous and uncomfortable, join the club. We're all here doing this together. And you should have received a program when you came in. And if you didn't, go ahead and just get up at any point. Go get yourself a program. You'll want those things throughout our time together. And we are going to open with a song. And so you're welcome to join in at your comfort level. We sing together, or you can just take it in.
And you can stand if you'd like as we sing this song. There is a sound I love to hear. It's the sound of the Savior's robe as he walks into the room where people pray, where we hear praises he hears faith. Sing it again. There's a sound. Sound I love to hear. It's the sound of the Savior's robe as he walks into the room where people pray, where we hear worship.
Whispering, you are not enough, or the lie that says you have nothing of value to offer? Have you believed the lie that says you don't have any real talents, or believe the lie whispering you can't make a difference? Today, God invites us to listen to a different voice. Close your eyes and listen. Listen for the voice that whispers you are more than enough. Listen for the voice that whispers you are of infinite value. Listen for the voice that whispers your talents are significant and necessary. Listen for the voice that whispers, you have already made a difference. Listen for the voice that spoke a blessing over 5 loaves and 2 fish and fed over 5,000 people. Today, that voice can bring hope, truth, and healing. Today, we choose to listen by faith.
Well, it is good to be together today. You can go ahead and have a seat right now. Let's check out what's happening this week.
Hello, Crossroads. I'm Kia. Thanks for spending part of your week connecting together. Whether you're joining us online, in person, or on demand, we hope that you find today inspiring, challenging, and even a little fun. If you are connecting in person today, you should have received a program as you came into the room. If you didn't, just slip your hand up and one of our room hosts will bring one right to you. If you're connecting online, you can find the digital program and other resources at crossroadscolorado.com/gather. Inside your program and on that webpage is our weekly Connect card. We want everyone to go ahead and fill out that card. Regular attenders, just put your name and email address on the front. If this is your first time or you're new here, welcome. Go ahead and fill out as much information as you feel comfortable sharing and check that box, I'm new here. Hang on to your card because at the end of the service, you can finish filling out the back of the card with next steps, sign-ups, prayer requests, or other comments. Then click the submit button or drop your card in the orange drop boxes on your way out of the auditorium. Part of our regular rhythm is the practice of generosity. We try to make giving as convenient as possible. You can text the word Crossroads to 833-270-1344. You can click the link on our website. You can give through Venmo using the email venmo@crossroadscolorado.com or use the giving envelope in your program. Regardless of how you give, thank you for giving each week. Your generosity funds a mission that brings hope to so many in our Northern Colorado community here and beyond. And this week in particular, your generosity was on full display in the funding of Kids Adventure Camp. This past week, we welcomed over 100 kids to campus where they learned what it means to be compassionate. We want to give a shout out to all the people that helped make Crossroads Adventure Camp a huge success. Our volunteers went above and beyond to make sure each child felt the love of God while having the best week ever. Thanks so much for being here this week, and be sure to read our e-newsletter that comes to your inbox every Wednesday for all of the latest information about what's happening in the Crossroads Network. Before we move on, take a closer look at some highlights from Kids Camp this past week.
Yeah, put your hands together for that, right? I know you were watching, you laughed at all the right spots. The kids loved that recap video. We had one at the end of every single day, so thanks to Darren and our tech team for doing all that stuff. Welcome, my name's Katie. I'm one of the pastors here at Crossroads. Good to be with you here in the room on campus, to be with all the kids that are swimming around the hallways, and just great to be together and to know that many, many people who aren't here in this room right now are joining us online across the miles. Hey, that camp theme was compassion, and I wondered if our kids, especially littles as young as like 4 years old, would get that word compassion. Oh boy, did they get it. We taught them on day one that compassion is, I see your hurt, I feel your hurt, and I help to ease your hurt. They were saying, 4-year-olds were saying that stuff at the end of day one when somebody falls and gets hurt. I see your hurt. I feel your hurt. I'll help ease your hurt, get you a Band-Aid. So, like, pretty cool. Big word, but our adventure kids totally got it. And how about these school supplies down here? That looks festive, doesn't it? Yeah, you open up a box of crayons and smell that. It smells like fall. It smells like possibility, doesn't it? We'll have prayer down here available in a little while, and some of you would rather just get a box of crayons and open it up and smell it for healing. It's good stuff. The school supplies. So this kicks off the annual school supply drive for Crossroads Church. All the grown-ups get to participate now. So we want you to start bringing this stuff and piling it here on the stage, or if we move the display to the atrium, wherever it happens to be, that mountain of school supplies, do bring it. It goes to our partner school, Edmondson Elementary School. This is a strategic partnership. They're right here in our own neighborhood. Wendy Hurd heads up that partnership for Crossroads, and she's a career educator, and she was purchasing school supplies this week at Walmart. The clerk said to her, "Thank you for what you're doing. I have been in this situation before where I had to choose between food for the family or school supplies." And some of us here in the room have been in that situation. But this is strategic for us at Crossroads because we look for ways that we can support God's calling in other people. Support the calling of teachers and administrators and parents who are there to nurture and grow, and the calling of our children. Our children are called to love and to learn and to be free in solid environments where they can rise up into what God's called them to do. So this is a small but mighty thing that we do. We support the calling of other people. So bring those school supplies. Let's pile them up. There's a list of most needed items in your program. And let's pray together. Would you join me as we pray for this school supply kickoff? Gracious God, we thank you for the little part that we had this week in teaching kids compassion and how it comes from you. You, the parent of all compassion, you, the inventor of compassion. I'm thinking of the words of the Apostle Paul, who wrote, "Praise be to the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of compassion, and the God of all comfort, who comforts us in all our troubles, so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves receive from God." And may these school supplies bring comfort into many homes and classrooms, to teachers, to students, and to parents. We pray in the name of the God of all comfort, Jesus Christ. Amen. All right. On the subject of prayer, we're going to enter into a couple of songs right now, which we'll stand and sing together in just a moment. And we want to provide an opportunity if you would like to receive prayer in person, which is a powerful, mighty thing to do. Jesus talked about the power of prayer when we're gathered. James wrote about it in his book. So we'll have Pastor Isaac Bartholomew is going to be over here on this side of the platform. Ryan Howell will be over here on this side. It's just a small thing that we can do. Just come from your seat and come up for prayer in person if it strikes you that that would be a good thing to do. Well, let's stand. Let's sing together.
Sing with me, sing, speak to me, sing together. Speak to me when the silence steals my voice. You understand me, you understand me. Come to me in the valley of unknowns. You understand me. You understand me, you understand me, you understand me. So I throw up my cares before you, my doubts and fears don't scare you, 'cause you're bigger than I thought you were. And I stop all negotiating God of all creation. You're bigger than I thought you were. You're bigger than I thought. Oh. Sing, I believe. But help my unbelief, 'cause you understand me, you understand me, and help me reach the faith that's underneath. You understand me, you understand me, you understand me, God. You understand me. Come on, sing it out. So I throw all my cares before you, my the Father's hand. I will rest in the Father's hand. Leave the rest in the Father. Come on, let's put it in His hands this morning. Come on. I will rest in the Father's hand. Leave the rest in the Father's hands. I will rest in the Father's hands. And I'll leave the rest. Come on, sing it out. So I throw up my cares before you, and my doubts and fears don't scare you. 'Cause you're bigger than I thought you were. You're bigger than I thought. And I stop all negotiation with the God of all creation. You're bigger than I thought you were. You're bigger than I thought. You're bigger than I thought you were. You're bigger than I Come on, let's rest in His hands. I will rest in the Father's hand. Leave the rest in the Father's hand. Amen.
Walking around these walls, I thought by now they'd fall, but you have never failed me yet. Waiting for change to come, knowing the battle's won, for you have never failed me yet. Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, faithfulness.
of all creation, thank you for the connection that we have to you. And I trust that in some way, everyone who's part of this gathering, now or on demand, has a sense of that connection. And that's what's drawn us here. And that is faith. To notice God in ourselves, to notice God in the people around us or in the world, and say, yes, I choose to make that part of how my life operates. So we thank you for the ability to discern your goodness that way, to put our faith in you, to ask for prayer, to sing songs of praise, all of it, God. Thank you for the ability. Thank you for the humility. And may you reward that faith by answering the call of each one who has cried out and by responding to our connection with you. We thank you for your goodness. We trust in it. We pray all this in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Amen. You may be seated. You may be seated now. You know, we're in this series called Campfire Stories, and we're really celebrating and digging into the stories that fill our scriptures that have been put down by people who've had an experience of God. And there are spiritual lessons, big ones, meaningful ones in these stories. These are perennial stories. The meaning of it will never go away. Every single generation appreciates them. So here we are in this series to appreciate them ourselves. There's a statement written in John chapter 21 that is our anchor verse. And the writer says there are also many other things that Jesus did, but if these were to be described individually, I don't think the whole world would contain the books that would be written. So that's something to celebrate. That's what we're about doing right now. Pull out your talk notes if you're a person who likes to take notes, or follow along, because here comes Ryan Howell to bring us the next campfire story.
Good morning. Nice to see everybody. Welcome to those of you that are in the room, those of you that are tuning in online. Thanks for joining in, and hopefully you're nice and comfortable in some pajamas or something like that. I don't know. Mimosa with you. We don't have mimosas here, but maybe you're having one right now, so good for you. I don't know if I'm supposed to talk about this or not at church. I tried bourbon for the first time this week. Any people in the room like bourbon? That's the most excited you've been in 2 years. Mention the word bourbon, everybody's like, yeah! That is disgusting, by the way. Like, what in the world is wrong with you people? It's like the most expensive bad time I've ever had in my life. So, come to my house. There's some bourbon there for you if you like it. I don't know. But we had some friends come into town, and he liked bourbon. I said, well, let's go get some. And it was horrible. Awful. So it's not ever been one. I have my vices, but bourbon isn't one of them. So it's good to see everybody. Thanks for being here as we continue on this idea of, I was just thinking about how I might have really offended somebody there. I apologize if I did. I'm not very good at what I do. Let's just call it what it is. So it's great. We're in this wonderful series where we're looking at these stories that function in a parabolic way. They teach us lessons, right? They teach us lessons. And if you are a guest, if this is your first time or second time, my name is Ryan. I'm the lead pastor here at Crossroads, which just means I get to serve all of our wonderful volunteers and this great team of colleagues that work really hard to try and create a space of compassion and hope and love and grace for our community, both here and around the world. And we have people tuning in. We call them orange dots of hope all over the place. And so we're grateful for that. And I would encourage you, if you are here, if you're connecting, there's a Facebook group. And I know that Facebook, like, trust me, I get it. And you might not be on Facebook, and that's totally cool, probably a healthy decision. But we do have this group that if you wanted to venture into, it's called Orange Dots of Hope. And there's 300 or 400 folks that are in that group. And it's just a neat opportunity to stay connected with one another. We don't really monitor it from a, like, you can just post whatever you want, really. But it's a great space where people put prayer requests, things that they might be going through, needs, opportunities. Maybe you have a solution that you're looking for a need for. You can put that on there. So it's neat. So I would encourage you to jump on there if you're on Facebook and just follow that and be a part of it. It's a neat opportunity. So let me ask you a question. Have you ever come across a problem so big that when you try to kind of engage with it, when you try to be a part of the solution, you just at the end of the day felt a little useless? Anybody ever felt that way? Like there's just something going on and you go, man, I want to help. It might be a friend, right? It might not be your circumstance, but you might have a friend who's going to be just like, I don't know what to do, right? It could be this very personal idea, but you think to yourself, man, I don't even know what I could do to contribute to try and help it, let alone be the person who solves the problem, right? Sometimes they're just such complex issues, things that are going on, and we want to be a part of the solution. We want to help, but we just feel so overwhelmed that sometimes it's paralyzing. And we kind of have I think there are two types of problems that we experience this in. First, we experience it in our personal lives, right? We have personal problems. How many of y'all would be like, yeah, I know somebody with some personal problems, right? One of them's up on the stage talking about bourbon at church, right? You're praying for me right now. You're going to join the Orange Dot of Hope to just put all the dangers of bourbon. I get it, totally. Like, yeah, I'm with you, right? But you know somebody. I oftentimes think like grief is one of the really classic examples of this, where we know someone or we ourselves are walking through grief, and grief is transforming us. And we don't know what to do with that. We don't know how to come alongside someone. And so we sometimes say the most well-meaning things, but they're the most awful things. Like some of the worst things are said in the midst of grief, right? Because we don't know what to do, right? We're just like in this situation where I don't know what to say, but I've got to fix the problem, right? But we face these things, or maybe we have a friend, or we ourselves are going through it, maybe a loss of a job, right? Those moments where it's just like, I don't know what to do. Like, I barely have enough money for my month. How do I help your month? I don't know. And so we just feel helpless and useless. And not only do we face this personally, but we face this globally as well. Like there are global problems that feel too complex to engage, right? We have these global problems that at the end of the day, when we say, I want to be a part of the solution, we just go, wait, it's just too big. Like, I don't know how to be a part. And so as a community of faith, we come together to try and like tackle and participate in some of these massive systemic global problems. And we say this is kind of what the Christian faith is about. Like the kingdom of God is about enough. The kingdom of God is about equity. The kingdom of God is about just fairness for every person. This is God's world. And so when we start to engage, it can get overwhelming. So here at Crossroads, we went through like a process of discernment and said, what are the things that we feel like over the next 10 years, we as a community could jump in and tackle together? And we're not going to solve these problems, but we can move the needle forward together in our own way. Right? So these 5 things that we talked about, the first one is what we'll call spiritual emptiness. Spiritual emptiness. Big shout out to our friends that are in the UK watching right now. I know of one couple, Val and Robin, that live in Lowestoft, and they're probably watching right now. It's like the afternoon there. So big shout out to them. And I say that because I'm going to give a UK statistic right now, because we want to think globally about these things. I recently read 89% of people, this is for you, Robin and Val, in the UK, 89% of young people in the UK between the ages of 16 through 29, get this, they believe that their lives have no meaning or purpose. Not 8%, 89%. 89%. And that statistic would, I think, carry over into just about any Western developed post-Christian context. That's spiritual emptiness. And you go, 89% of people ages 16 to 29, where do you even begin? We talk about poverty as our second unacceptable truth. We want to lean into and work against extreme poverty. According to the World Poverty Clock, which is a really fascinating website, if you just Google World Poverty Clock, you can see, and it shows you like, given what's happening in the world and the efforts that are taking place, how many people have gone into poverty today, how many have come out of poverty, and they like project out a date when poverty will be eliminated. It's really fascinating. But according to the World Clock for Poverty, 712 million people live in extreme poverty. Today alone, 23,000 people fell into extreme poverty. They went from poverty to extreme poverty. 23,000 people. You go, that's today alone. Like how could we even think we make a dent in that? And we start to think, well, what could I actually do? A third area that we want to be a part of rewriting is illiteracy. That's one of our 5 unacceptable truths. According to UNESCO, that carries statistics for a lot of development work that takes place in the world, 773 million illiterate adults in the world today, and most of them are women. We have a massive gender disparity in the world today when it comes to access to education and lots of other like healthcare, things like that. But you see the school supply drive. We don't do this just because it's something we ought to do. We do this because it's missional, right? This is working against these ideas. But you go, well, will my pack of crayons really help? Katie mentioned this story we heard. It was so powerful to get this story this week of Wendy Hurd. She's there in the store, and this woman sees, and she says, thank you. And Wendy thinks that it's because she's loading her own groceries on the conveyor belt. And she says, no, thank you for buying these school supplies and donating them. And she starts to cry. I mean, she's overwhelmed with gratitude because she said, there was a time in my life where I was having to choose between buying food and buying school supplies, right? Now you're combining poverty and illiteracy, like this whole complexity it's this web. And now you even go, what do I do with that, right? Am I actually making a difference? A third area that we want to work in as a church is what we call fear of others. You could call it hatred, because that's really what it is, hatred. But this fear of others, particularly racism, sexism, homophobia, we want to be a part of rewriting this story. Last November, a report came out from the FBI talking about hate crimes here in America. And it said that in 2019, because that's the latest statistics, this came out in 2020, in 2019, the U.S. rose to the highest level in more than a decade when it comes to hate crimes. Like, we're moving in the wrong direction of hate. If there's now more than ever that we need churches that are grounded in a God that loves the world, like wholly, fully loves the world, that welcomes all. Like, we need that desperately. And then our fifth area, which is really tied into a lot of these others, is human trafficking. Like, globally and locally, human trafficking is just absolutely mind-boggling. Over 40 million victims of human trafficking globally. Right, modern day slavery. 81% of them are trapped in forced labor. 75% are women and girls. Again, this extraordinarily disproportionate reality in gender. 75% are women and girls. 1 in 4 victims of human trafficking are children. Statistically speaking, the International Labor Organization says $150 billion industry worldwide. $150 billion industry. And you go, well, here's my $20 for the offering. Good luck with that, right? Like, that's great. We're going to do it, right? It's no wonder, right, with this type of reality, right? This is truth. This is reality. That's why we call it unacceptable truths, because it is true. We have to, first of all, honor that, but then we say it's unacceptable. But it's no wonder why Paul wrote in this letter to a group of people in Galatians, he said, let's not grow weary or tired of doing good. Right? Like, he only wrote that because it's super easy to grow weary and tired of doing good. Right? He can say all he wants, at just the right time we'll reap a harvest if we don't give up. You only have to write that if you want to give up. And you want to give up because you feel useless. It's easy to grow weary in doing good when you feel useless. When you just wonder, does it even matter? Does it matter? So I put a drop in the bucket of poverty, a drop in the bucket, but what does it matter? And as I think about those feelings, and as I think about the truth of like what we as individuals by ourselves can actually do, what we can actually bring, I'm reminded of this story of a kid who said, I think I can make a difference. And he trusted Jesus. And I would think if I were sitting down in my home with people and we were talking and they were to begin to share with me, boy, I really have this heart for literacy. I have this heart for ending human trafficking. I have a heart for poverty. I have a heart for my friends who are grieving and I don't know what to do. I would hope that over a nice warm beverage, because that's what you do when you're feeling a little down. You have a warm beverage. If you've watched The Big Bang Theory, it's a rule in life. As we'd be sitting there, I would offer a warm beverage, and then I'd say, can I tell you a story about a kid who decided to trust Jesus? And we see this story in all 4 of the Gospels, and we see this story shaped differently in all 4 of them as well, because it served a really unique purpose. But in John chapter 6, the Gospel of John, we see this amazing story where Jesus had left Jerusalem right after, according to in John's narrative, it was like after the time of Passover. So there's big crowds. People are probably journeying back home. He's going back into the region of Galilee, and he's gathered by the Sea of Galilee. Now, one thing you have to know is that Jesus had become quite popular in Galilee, right? So Galilee was the region that Jesus grew up in. Nazareth was a part of this area, and he grew up in Lower Galilee. And there was a lot happening in Lower Galilee. If we're ever going to understand Jesus, if we're ever going to understand Scripture, if we're ever going to think about how to apply it to our lives correctly, we have to understand the historical matrix in which all of this literature came into being. And Galilee was a hotbed because two things had happened over the course of about 40 years in Galilee. You had two massive urban centers being developed by Herod. And so Herod had said, this one town of Sepphoris, which was just outside of Nazareth, like 6 kilometers away, a little over 3 miles, very close to the village that Jesus would have grown up in, was starting to boom. And Sepphoris was considered to be kind of the capital of Galilee for many years. But then, and I think it was probably around 4, I think it was, or maybe it was the year 18, Herod decides, I'm going to create a new city on the seacoast to honor the emperor and try and get in good with the emperor because he wanted to be king of Judah. He was only a governor of just an area. And so he creates a brand new metropolis, a brand new city called Tiberias, named after Tiberius. Thank you. Thank you for paying attention, Jim. I appreciate that. Jim's the only one who cares about history right now. That's awesome. Appreciate it. And so what you have are these two massive cities, urban cities, being developed by Rome, and it's creating a peasantry that is being oppressed and abused. And this is the climate that Jesus grows up in. He grows up as a tradesman, which cities were not good for the trades. What was happening, land was being taken over. It's this massive collision with the Jewish value that you never sell your land, with Roman imperialism that's taking land to try and feed cities. And you have two massive cities coming. So Jesus is really popular amongst the peasants because Jesus is saying, this isn't the way of God. This isn't the way of the kingdom. So when Jesus talks about blessed are the poor, when Jesus talks about loving your enemy, all of these things, when he talks about, you have to understand that matrix with which he's grown up in. He's seen John the Baptist and John's program not work. Like they beheaded John, right? Jesus was probably a disciple of his cousin for a season. And then he sees, well, that way didn't work, right? And so he begins to talk about a different kingdom that isn't based upon any one person, but for everyone. And so in this moment, he's super popular. So the crowds are gathering. They find out that he's on the other side of the Sea of Galilee. They all come around. And the text says there's like 5,000 people. And so Jesus looks out and he sees all these people and he realizes it's getting late. They've been listening. It's like a sermon here at Crossroads. They just like, man, it's 3:00. Can we wrap this up? I got a chicken in the oven, Ryan, you know? And so Jesus looks at Philip, one of his friends, one of the disciples, and he says, hey, Phil, like, what do you think here? Like, where should we buy food? And the text says that Jesus was kind of like playing a little joke on Philip, like just seeing what he would do. Because he had a plan. He knew what he was going to do. But what we see is like Philip hears this question. He just thinks Jesus has lost his mind. He's just like, man, the Galilean son has got to you, right? You haven't had, like, what are you talking about? Where are we going to buy food? He's like, are you crazy, Jesus? It would take half a year's wages to buy a bite for everyone. A bite. Not feed everyone, but a bite. Half a year's wages. Philip goes into like, well, let's buy it. If we're going to buy it, Jesus, that's crazy talk, but here's how this works. Here's how the world works. We got to go find it. We go buy it from somebody, and then we're going to feed everybody. And then Andrew, one of the other disciples, like he speaks up, because he found this kid who's got a couple of pieces of bread, a couple of dried fish. I hope they're dried fish, raw fish. Like I don't know how that works in the Sea of Galilee, honestly, but he probably has some dried fish. And Andrew looks at the situation, and Andrew thinks that what he actually has to provide compared to the problem is useless, right? Andrew's like, listen, we got 5 loaves and 2 fish this boy here has brought up to us, but what good is that? What good are 5 loaves and 2 fish, or fishes, depending upon where you were raised? What good is it? What are we going to do with it? I mean, it's impossible. Jesus, I love it. He just says, okay, so we've got the worldly way of doing things, which says you got to go buy it, the economics of the world, that if we just follow the economics of the world, there isn't enough for everybody. And we got Andrew over here who's like, well, what I have is absolutely useless. And so Jesus said, well, why don't you just bring it here? Let me see. And he says, do me a favor, let's divide everybody up. Some of the stories talk about Jesus dividing everybody up to more manageable size. Let's put 50 over here and 100 over here. And let's just break them up into groups. Let's see what happens. And he takes the bread, he takes the fish, and in kind of a very similar manner to the way in which he would take communion. These are all stories that are tied together. That's why I think there's a parabolic nature to them. So the story goes, he takes the bread and he breaks it and he prays a blessing over it and he thanks God for it and takes and does the same with the fish. And he says, all right, let's go for it. Just go ahead and feed everybody. And at the end of the story, after everybody had their fill, there were 12 baskets left over of food. 12 baskets. Now remember the reality that most of these folks that are out there are peasants. They're oppressed. They probably don't have daily bread. That's why the prayer, give us today our daily bread, was quite literally, give us today our daily bread. Because of the matrix, the historicity of what Jesus was dealing with and what was happening in that day. There's 12 baskets left. And what I love is that Jesus loved leftovers. Right? Jesus was like, box that up. Box it up. Waste not, want not, right? Like some of you are leftover. Like you order and you're like, just put it in the bag. I'm going to take it all as leftovers, right? You just love, there are some things that are just better heated up. And I bet you that those leftovers were better heated up, right? You don't eat that bread and not go, what happened? What happened? You don't have a conversation. Like it's like if you go to a restaurant and you take home leftovers and you start eating it and you're like, oh, it's so good. And like you remember the people who were at the restaurant with you. Like you got to imagine that's what happened. You got to imagine it. And one of the things I don't want us to miss about this beautiful story that has lasted over 2,000 years, that is true all the time, but who knows how who in the world knows how historically accurate this is? But it's true. Like that's the beauty of these stories. Like it's truth. And the thing that we don't want to miss that is so true about this is that nothing is useless in the hands of Jesus. Nothing. If we will take and let it pass through the hands of Jesus, nothing is useless. Nothing. I think that's one of the key long-term takeaways. Rip the story out of its historical realities. Rip it out of the point of the original people that passed this story on. What we learn today and what will always be true for every generation that hears this story, that says there's truth in this story, that wants to apply it, is to say there's nothing in my life if I put it in the hands of Jesus, the one who lives, whatever that means for you, who is alive, living, it's not useless. And we hold that in faith. And so in your everyday normal life, when you're walking into these situations and you say, I have the heart of a peacemaker. I want to bring peace and wholeness into this world, but I feel so overwhelmed with my own problems. I feel so overwhelmed with your problems. I feel so overwhelmed with the problems of the world. What could I possibly do? A couple things that I think this story can bring to our hearts. First of all is this: Jesus always has a plan for the problems in our lives. I just believe that. Now, what I don't believe is that Jesus planned the problems in our lives, okay? That I don't believe. I don't believe for a second that the God of the universe who creates and sustains, that I proclaim in faith is good, has anything to do with death, pain, suffering, loss. It's not like, I just don't believe the cosmos, the universe is like, you need a dish of humble pie, so I'm going to kill your family with cancer. That is not how love works. It's just not. But love says, this awful reality that has happened in your life, I've got a plan for it. This is what happens in John 6. This is what John wrote, right? John said, when Jesus looked up and saw a great crowd coming towards him, he said to Philip, hey, where should we buy bread for all these people to eat? And I love this. He only asked it to test him. I want to see where Philip's head is. Is his head in the game? Is his head in the kingdom of God? Where is it? He wanted Philip to say, what do we need to buy bread for? You're here. What do we need to buy bread for? Look at who's around. Surely all the resources are here among us. We just need to ask politely, right? He was testing him because he already had in mind what he was going to do. I love that. He had a plan for the problem. Wasn't surprised by it. This, I think, is more about, like, if I can just big theology, like the omniscience of God, like this idea that God is all-knowing. Like, I think that's the idea that love actually can formulate a plan for all circumstances, all realities. That's what's so powerful about God, what we call God. is that if we're willing to, we'll recognize there can be a plan for this problem. Just as we even prayed today with folks, God is in the midst of it. Didn't plan it, didn't want it, didn't desire it. It's here, it's present, it's a reality. And the goodness of God says, I've got a plan for it. And when we face these problems and we say, okay, there is a plan for it, we should trust the power of thankfulness in the midst of it. I love that Jesus took the loaves, it says in verse 11. He took the loaves and he gave thanks for what he had. 5 loaves, gave thanks. 5,000 people, 1 kid willing to give it up and help out. Nobody else was like, well, we got this. 1 kid comes up. I imagine mom and dad are like, get back, here's our lunch. What do you think you're doing? Get over here. Unless you become like a child, you can't enter the kingdom of heaven. So he comes with his 5 loaves and 2 fish. And I love that Jesus gave thanks. And then he distributed to those who were seated as much as they wanted. And he did the same with the fish. There is an important reality to having a heart of thanksgiving for the fish that we have, for the loaves that we have, to not get caught up in what we don't have. We have this great story in Acts, the book of Acts, where a couple of the disciples are coming alongside and there's somebody who needs healed, and he's asking for money. And they said, well, silver and gold I don't have, but what I have I give to you. Right? That disposition, that heart, what I have I can give. And so I'm thankful for that. Whatever my 5 loaves are, whatever my 2 fish are in this circumstance, in this reality, I'm gonna give it, and I'm gonna be thankful for it. I think it's powerful to think that Jesus was thankful for the little boy, right? Wouldn't it be cool if Jesus was thankful for you? Oh man, I'm so thankful that Gwen is here today. Man, I'm just so thankful that she works with those kids. Thank you for that. I'm so thankful for that. I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful that Robin is watching today in the UK, because Robin's going to have experiences this next week to encourage people with her positivity and her grace. I'm so thankful for that. Like, could you imagine Jesus praying and being thankful for you? Boy, that would be a great life mission. I just want Jesus to be thankful that I'm there. Wouldn't it be funny, Jesus, man, thank God Ryan was there, right? Or like, oh no, Ryan's there, right? And then as we live in this heart of thankfulness and we step out with our 5 loaves and 2 fish, I think this story should remind us that courage and generosity are contagious. Courage and generosity are contagious. So this little boy comes to Andrew, right? And says, hey, I got 5 loaves and 2 fish. And Andrew speaks up, right? And he says, we've got this boy with 5 small fish and 5 small barley loaves. Like 2 fish, 5 loaves, like how far is that going to go? But once it's in Jesus' hands, I think the courage of this little boy became a miracle. I think we miss the power of the little boy, and we get fixated on theistic, like transcendental, like God stepped in and did this popcorn kind of miracle. But I don't know that that's how it happened. Like I would think that when you say when everybody had enough, like the text says, that they gathered all that was left over and nothing was going to be wasted. So they gathered it all up. They filled 12 baskets, it says, with pieces of 5 barley loaves, and everybody had eaten. Everybody had eaten. And I like to imagine the real miracle in this story is that people were generous. And not just people, but peasants who were oppressed, who had very little for themselves, who didn't even know if they had their daily bread. See, the real miracle was people being able and willing to give their 5 loaves and their 2 fish because they saw one person do it. One person do it. So I'll just lay my cards on the table. I don't know where that phrase came from because I never played cards, but not a sinner. I just drink bourbon every now and then. I'll just be real with you. Like, some people take this story very literally, that Jesus, and then it was just like the bread just kept coming, like it was just multiplying in his hand. Could have happened that way. I have no problems with that. Me personally, I find the bigger miracle is in these groups of 50 and 100 people, they saw Jesus and they just started imitating Jesus. What do we have here? And people started going, well, we brought a couple figs and we brought some bread. It's hard for me to imagine that the only Jewish mama that day was one who packed lunch for their family. You know what I'm saying? Like, come on, people. Right? It's just really hard for me to imagine that. Like, there's only one, you know. Like, that was Mother Teresa incarnate back then, you know. Right? No, I think I think they modeled it and they saw it in groups of 50 and 100, and they just began to say, what do I have? What do you have? What do you have? And so they just began to imitate Jesus. And everybody had enough. Everybody had enough. See, I think that's the miracle. And I think if our faith is grounded in this idea that we're just waiting for God, like we just have this idea of just like supernatural theism, like God's going to come down and make everything okay someday. God's going to come down and feed everybody. Then I think we miss it. But if we recognize the call of the Christian faith is to imitate Jesus, I think that's the heart of the story. Imitate Jesus. Why this carried into communities? Because what the story was about was saying your community will succeed if you act like Jesus. If you take what you have, if your community is 50 or if your community is 100, and you'll pass it through the way of Jesus, there'll be enough for everybody. And that's why this makes the world a better place. That's why it's peacemaking. When you actually catch the point that my 5 loaves, my 2 fish, I could use it all on myself, but this isn't the vision of God for the world. God's vision isn't that I have 5 loaves and 2 fish and you have no. God's vision is that we all have enough. I don't believe God's vision is that we all have 1 bite. That's a big part of this story, right? And that's the hope that's found for the peasantry, is that it's not God's vision for you to have a bite and for there to be this massive meal over here with all the landholders that stole your land. No, God's vision is that everybody has enough. And if we all live like that, there's actually plenty left over. If we'll actually capture God's vision for the world. See, the way this world thinks is like Philip, who says it would take more than half a year's wages, and at that point, everyone would only get a bite. Because Philip, like all of us, are trapped in the economics of this world. We think this is how it has to work. But Jesus comes along and says, no, just let me have it. Just let me have it. And put it under my vision and my care. And so Jesus takes it and distributes it to everybody, and they all had enough. And I just still believe that Jesus will still feed the 5,000 people when we're willing to trust him with our stuff. And that we don't have to get caught up in how big the problem is that there's 773 million illiterate adults in the world. We don't have to get caught up in the problem that 89% of young people in the UK find that their lives have no meaning. I don't have to get caught up in that. I just have to, as a community, say, I'm going to bring what I have to the table and trust in God's vision. It will work. And so we all, I think, sit in these spaces where we have our 5,000 that need to be fed, right? And we go, what do I do? What do I do? I think today, and maybe God's inviting you to think, well, what should you do? What should you do? It's my hope for us as a church that we all would feel and hear the Spirit whispering, like, I'm inviting you to participate in rewriting these 5 unacceptables. I'm inviting you to go on a 10-year journey. I'm inviting you to think about church totally different than everybody else in Western Christianity. By that, I mean that it's not about whether I like the songs. It's not about whether I agree with everything the pastor says. It's not about whether this happens or I get to pick the color or I'm in charge. It's about actually seeing the kingdom of heaven be brought into the kingdom of this world and built out and making a long-term commitment, because that's the only way things change, is longevity. We change that's why Christianity has stood the test of time, right? Because people have stuck with it. And so I think desperately what we need are churches, local churches, that will grab a hold of something so much bigger than they could ever imagine they could do, and just trust, just bringing my 5 loaves and my 2 fish every week, just being a part of it. And so we think here in terms of 10 years, what does that look like? What could we be a part of with God, with the Spirit, with local organizations, with global organizations? How does it mean to see the kingdom of heaven on earth? That's why Jesus prayed, on earth as it is in heaven. It's a metaphor, right? It's all together, coming together. So I hope you hear God whispering you to say, make a 10-year commitment. I'm serious about that, by the way. Like, people think I'm crazy. Like, when people volunteer, like, you know what most people in churches, they want you to volunteer for, like, will you just volunteer for 6 months with the kids? I'm like, what is that? I'm like, you need to volunteer for 5 years. I don't know why you're laughing. It's not a joke. 6 months just makes you feel good about yourself. 5 years will change the life of a child. What do you want to do? Like, that's the way I look at it. Like, what are you willing? I mean, yeah, if we want to make you, if the goal of my job is to make you feel better, then just volunteer for 6 months, check it off the box and say, look what I did, and post on Facebook the picture, and you'll feel good about yourself. That's wonderful. You just won't change anybody's life. And your life won't be changed either. But you say, I'm going to give 5 years of my life, and I'm going to track with a first grader all the way to 6th grade, a kindergartner all the way to 5th grade. I'm going to start with a 6th grader, and I'm going to walk with them and graduate and partner with his family. Now you're going to be transformed. Now you're going to see a life changed. Now we're really digging in. It's just not easy. I mean, but it's 5 loaves and 2 fish, right? That's what it is. So I hope you hear God's Spirit inviting you to make a 10-year commitment, to say, no matter what happens, this is what I'm called to, because it's bigger than Ryan, it's bigger than Katie, it's bigger than Isaac, it's bigger than anybody else. It's bigger than it's just bigger. And so I'm in. And some of you made that commitment. You've been here longer than, I mean, it's like, I'm like, why are you still here? But boy, that's contagious, right? Remember, that's what's contagious. So I hope you hear that whisper. And I hope you hear the Spirit whispering you today to just bring your 5 loaves and 2 fish. Like, just that's all it is. Right? Just bring your 5 loaves and 2 fish and just trust. Trust the community, trust Jesus, but just bring it. Just bring it. Stop worrying about whether it'll make a difference. Just bring it. And by the way, I should say this too. I'm like super gracious person around 5. Life happens, right? You make a commitment. Life happens. Your job, you move, you get sick. I mean, that's not the point, right? The point isn't like law, like 5 years. If you don't do it, then we're kicking you out, and the church discipline. And I've never exercised church discipline. I don't even know what that is. I don't know what that is. But we make that commitment with the best of intention, because we just go, all I'm committing is my 5 loaves and 2 fish. Like, that's it. I'm not going to commit to 10 loaves when I only got 5. That's just nerve-wracking. So I hope you hear the Spirit whisper. And here's something that is really fun to do. I don't know why I say it's fun, because you're going to be like, this is not fun, Ryan. Why did you say it fun? I would encourage everybody who says, I'm going to make that commitment to be a part of this community and to lean in and to bring my 5 loaves and 2 fish. I would encourage you to discover your 5 loaves and 2 fish by making a list of everything you own and ask this question, God, how can you use this to heal and restore the world? Everything. Everything that God has entrusted into your care, everything. Write it down on paper. Just make a big old long list and just say, how could you use this, God? And just wait for the answer. You got a boat. How could I use this? I could take Ryan out on it. Heal and restore his life. You got some bourbon. I could invite somebody over who will enjoy it, right? All that, I think we oftentimes get lost in, I got to have all these big gifts. It's just, no, it's like, what do you have? And then how do I reframe that by, how could God use this? And you'll be amazed. You'll be amazed. You keep that list. You'll be amazed. You say, God, how do you want to use it? You'll see it. You'll start to see it, because you're preparing your soul to actually see what God's been doing forever around you. And then life gets really interesting, right? Life gets really interesting. We were talking with the kids this week. We're going to sing a song here in just a second. If you want to grab your Connect card and just think about next steps or get your offering ready. We got to talk with the kids during the story, and we talked about, it was funny, the curriculum we used, they had like the day of Pentecost. This is a total church person, if you're a church person and you know the story. If you don't know the story, just fill out your Connect card, whatever. And it's this really interesting story in the book of Acts where people are all gathered in this room, and a wind comes by and they see like fire in the sky. And I'm like trying to talk to like second graders about like, well, who picks this story, right? But it was really great because we were able to talk to the kids about, the first thing that the church did when it was born wasn't develop a catechism of everything you have to believe. It wasn't buy a building. They took everything that they had and they said, if you have a need and I can meet it, I'll do that. That was the first thing. Like, that was the hallmark of the church. And it just hit me today as I was praying with people and thinking about what's been posted in the orange dot. Like, every need that we have as a community in the life of our church is the resources are here to meet. If we'll just make them available. They're all there, and it's never a burden on any one person. It's powerful. But that was the first act of the church, was to say, how do we hold things in common? It wasn't communism. It wasn't like everything is owned by this person. No, it was, this is my stuff. These are my things. But when I see a need, I just give it and I use it. It's a powerful reality. It's totally different than what we think of in terms of Western Christianity, but it's why the church survives, because there's always a faithful segment that kind of holds to those values. So we got this song that says, "You have called me higher." And so I would just encourage you, this is a great prayer to close our time together. And to just sing this as a prayer that I could just sit in the comfort of my kind of Western, like very personal, I'm good with God, I said the prayer kind of spirituality, or I read my Bible every day. But I could sit there and be really comfortable and feel really good about myself, but I'm not going to do that, because I'm going to know that you've called me into something higher. You've called me into the spaces where there's 5,000, and my mind tells me there's no way I could do it, but I'm just going to give my 5 loaves and my 2 fish. So do me a favor and stand up together. We've been sitting here, and I would just encourage you, if this is the first time you've heard this song, to sing out and annoy the person next to you. Sing so loud, it's just annoying. Just in faith. It'll be an encouragement to the band. And then I have a blessing for us to get us out of here.
I could just sit and wait for all your goodness and hope to feel your presence. And I could just stay right where I am and hope to feel you, hope to feel something again. I could hold on. Change me from the inside, and I could be safe, oh, I could be safer in your arms and never leave, and never let these walls down. But you have called me higher, you have called me deeper, and I'll go where you will lead me, Lord. You have called me higher, you have called me deeper, and I'll go
hands up like that. You can clap first. That's great. That's great. That's good. That's good. Got a blessing for you if you just open up your arms, open up your heart and your life to receive hopefully what is truth in a world that consistently wants to bombard us with lies. And we have to say thank you to Caleb, who played drums today, who this was his first time and used his 5 loaves and his 2 fish. So that's great. You don't think these are like just real normal people. It's who we are. So just close your eyes, take a nice deep breath. May God bless you and keep you, and may hope flood your soul this week. And as you leave the comfort of this gathering and walk into the pain and problems of life, may you know somewhere in the deepest part of your being that Jesus has a plan for the problems in our lives. And as you look out at your 5,000, that situation that seems impossible, may you hear the Spirit of Jesus whispering into your heart and into your soul, what should we do together about this? And may you find your 5 loaves and 2 fish, those things that you think of as useless in the face of such complex problems like spiritual emptiness, poverty, illiteracy, hatred, and human trafficking. And once you find your loaves, may you also find the courage to place them in the hands of Jesus, that he might offer thanksgiving to his Father for you. And then that he might multiply your gifts beyond your wildest dreams this week. Amen. Have an awesome week, everybody.